Welcome to Mindshifters Radio. Today is Tuesday, August the 25th, 2026. Welcome to the show. Peter, it's good to see you. You're muted.
Is that Peter Strino that's with us? Hello, Peter. I guess he's not going to talk, so that's okay.
There he goes.
It
Now you're
is.
with us.
Well, welcome. Gee, we haven't heard your voice in a long time. Glad
So
you're here.
it
How are you
is.
doing?
I'm good.
What's exciting
How
in
are
your
you
world?
doing?
Oh, it looks gorgeous there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful evening.
Are you at home in Sweden?
I am in my garden.
Awesome. Very nice. Well, what's exciting in your world? Anything to share with us?
I have a question, I think,
Well, let's go for it.
and I hope I will be arriving at a question. I even started to write down some notes here before, so hopefully we'll get to a question. And it's regarding fear, and I am still, the topic is still connected to archery. So it feels like I'm still in the minor league. I'm still doing the same thing over and over, it seems. And
There's a book about that. You might want to read it.
well, actually, I have read it, and
Just myself again.
but I'm starting to wonder, I think maybe it's not correct what's written in that book, because here I am still doing it. So we'll see.
Well, let me ask you a question. Having some knowledge of your history,
I was going to ask the question, but okay, go ahead.
knowing that, well, my question is a response to your comment, and that is knowing your family system and your history with your power person, who was your archery inspiration coach, teacher, all of those things. How many generations in your bloodline do you suppose there has been this kind of a tension between a father and a son?
Many.
So if there have been many generations, and you're probably the first one who said, I'm going to address this in my genes, genetically, emotionally, physiologically, how long do you suppose it's going to take? You may not have been on a show that I did, this goes back a few months ago, but I had done a still point session, and I had an issue come up. That was one of my, why am I doing this to myself again? It's like, God, how long is this going to take? And the direct answer I got back was, Michael, how long have you been away? And I broke into laughter, because it's like, I've never come close to really living in the space of what I'm looking for in this arena. So yeah, I've been away for a while. Okay, I can breathe and go back to letting it move. Have you worked with the Power Person worksheet around this issue? Or I should say the Power Person booklet?
I haven't done, I know that it's been extended even more, so I haven't done the newest version, but I have.
You've worked with it?
Yeah.
So what layer is coming up now? What are we?
Well, it's like I'm questioning, it's questioning in my head, because every time I practice, there is forgiveness to be done if I choose to. There is forgiveness to be done, and it's so clearly it's both fear and it's hostility. Fear comes first, and then the hostility is my own inner dialogue towards myself, and so that's the hostility, and that comes always secondary. I was at a
My offering is
competition.
hostility. My offering is hostility isn't a dialogue. Hostility is a drug.
Yeah.
It's an anesthetic.
Well, I'm definitely addicted, because as night follows days, I think you say in English. So that's how it is. It comes every time. And now, in regards to what you said, I was at a competition this last weekend, and
Right.
I've been doing really well practicing wise. And then I came and we start with practice rounds, and I was doing really good. And as soon as the competition starts, fear seemingly out of nowhere. And it's like, don't think of the color of your card. Don't think of anything, Peter. Don't think of anything. And bam, the fear is there. And what you said now, for how long have you been away, Michael, in that breathing session? And that's one of my power person dynamic, clearly, that what happens when the fear shows up in my system, I leave. I go away. I mean, I'm still there, and I even had thoughts of in regards to this work, but it's so clearly that I do. I move away, survival mechanism, away from the fear. And then the drug comes, as you say, the hostility, the drug comes afterwards, hitting myself, why I wasn't able to stay and why I did that and what have you, that I wasn't good and all of that. But that's not really where my question is, though.
Okay.
I've heard so many times, cast out all fear, and fear not, fear not. You mentioned how many times it's written in the Bible,
Right.
fear not, fear not, fear not, fear not. And it just seems to me that it's an impossible prompt, because if the fear is there, and clearly, I mean, it seems like it comes out of nowhere. And I listened to yesterday's show, and at one point you said, well, feelings are just shadow thoughts. So fear not. So then it's the thoughts that should not be thought. Fear not is really a prompt of don't think those thoughts. Well, how do you not think those thoughts? And
Well, of course, we know the solution side of it is forgiveness.
yeah, exactly. But then we also say, I have none of that, or it is being said, I have none of that in my store. And
Right.
I've always heard that being referred to the fear. And that, I think that's really where my question lies.
Okay.
So will I forgive so that there is no fear, or will I forgive the thought disorders and then I won't be able to recruit the fear?
Right. So the situation where that comment comes up, I have none of that in my store, is where, and I forget where it's located, but the Pharisees are all over Yeshua. And in essence, the disciples are like, why don't you sock it to them? Why don't you give them back some of their own medicine? Why don't you rage back at them the way they're raging at you? Why don't you attack them the way they're attacking you? And to that he responds, I don't have any of that in my store. I can't do that because I'm free of that, is what he was saying in that case.
But couldn't that be applicable to, because then he has none of the rage, he didn't have any hostility. So couldn't that be applicable also to, I have none of that in my store. I have no fear in my store.
Yes, yes. Yeah, of course. Once I've freed myself of whatever the thought disorder, and it's usually a power person message about how, in this case, it probably, the message is something like, "You're broken. You're not good enough. You'll never be good enough." And when you realize that that's been going on between fathers and sons and daughters and mothers forever in most family systems, then there's going to be a significant amount of work to do to actually reach to the depths and remove it. I'll share with you that, you know some of my story personally. Uh, my father met me being called in from work saying your kid's not going to make it through the night at the day of my birth, and a relationship that was in some cases to the extreme of abuse for until I became an adult and just said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to receive this anymore. And when I was first introduced to this work, that was the issue that brought me to it, and that was the issue that I worked with. And I cleared out some layers of it, and that's 55 years ago. And I've come back around to that issue over and over and over and over again. And about 2 years ago, Dad came up in my mind again. So I've been working on cleaning up that issue and knowing, looking at my brother and his relationship with my father, looking at what I know of all of my father's brothers and their sons. And it's like through the whole family. And for me, and this was probably about 2 years ago, I was doing a breath session, and you know how precious Arya is to me. And my father came up. Now, for years, I've been able to think about my dad and be in a pretty good place. It was okay. I could, hail him, accept him, but there was always a distance. And I feel like I finally totally completed that issue about 2 years ago when he came into a still point session that I was doing. And I was able to embrace him with the same caring, cherishing, sweet enthusiasm that I'm able to embrace my grandchildren with. And I'd not been able to do it till then. Somebody says, well, gee, doesn't sound like this works very well. Well, if I look at, literally, I just finished doing some work with the son of a cousin. His father was my age cousin who is abusive with his son as his father was with him, alcohol involved and such. And he's now in his early 60s, and he's just in the rage stage with his father. He's just like, I want to kill this son of a bitch. This kid's 60. Nice kid otherwise. One of the things he likes to do most is play Santa Claus, go and be with kids and take care of them. It's Christmas. But boy, if you bring his father to mind, he's just like one total and complete physiological stage of rage. And this is a second cousin. I guess that's what my cousin's son would be, I think. I'm not even sure how that all works. But he can't even start to hear that. And we've processed his grandfather as an alcoholic and his abuse toward him. His father had quit drinking in the later years, so alcohol wasn't as much of a factor. But this kid's in his 60s, and he's just, if his father is mentioned, he's just totally, completely consumed with rage. And I'll invite you to notice that you can talk about your father, and there was a time when that was, if I remember correctly, pretty close to the situation. And yeah, there are more layers to be done. And my offering is you're cleaning up literally for the whole family system. And the other question I would ask you is, how is the energy with your sons, you being dad, and from their point of view.
And my answer, unfortunately, on that would be it's rather distant because I don't recognize what you're saying. It's like I have none of that in my store when it comes to rage towards my dad. And to me, I don't see that now, at least maybe it has been there and I can't really recall that. And
Well, the word you used was anger.
say that again.
The word you used was anger.
Yeah, hostility towards myself.
Okay.
And that's more my mother's rant against my father. That's how I see that he wasn't good enough. He was no good son of a, and so both my mom and dad, but my dad definitely, I mean, he distanced himself with alcohol or without the alcohol with different ways. So, and that was the sad part when you asked that question, how my relationships to my sons distant. That would probably be the answer, both if you ask them and if now asking me.
So then my
Yes.
offering would be that probably the next layer of healing would accelerate if you were to sit down with your sons and start to deal with whatever that distance is about. Take another look at it with them, get into some responsibility communication with them around it.
Because again, the example of the archery, the fear shows up in my system seemingly from nowhere. And like I said, the way I handled that is definitely a power person behavior. I did what I hated the most because I left. I survive the fear, so to speak, by leaving. I'm no longer present. I am distant.
Hmm. So what comes up for you if I say, how about calling your son, inviting him to come and spend an evening with you while you prepare dinner together, one at a time or both of them at the same time?
We can do that. Both are in Norway at the time, so won't happen now, but probably around Christmas, next time I'm going to meet
Mm-hmm.
them.
Unless you went took a quick run over to Norway.
I could do that too.
You could do
They're,
that. How
although
important
they
is
are
it?
very different places, but yes. But back to the fear, because the archery situation, the fear shows up before I go distant.
The fear and the self-deprecation.
The self,
Deprecation, the thoughts of what's wrong with me. And who, if you had to select someone who told you what was wrong with you, who would that be?
yeah, see that I don't have any recollection of any of anyone ever telling me that that was wrong with me, but I heard it a million times. My mom telling to me or to dad uh, how bad
About
he
dad.
was. Yeah, how bad he was.
Yeah. So I would suggest that perhaps you get some insight by doing a worksheet around dad as though you were your mother, and around
Oh,
mom as though you
so
were
I'm
your
I,
dad.
I'm being mother. I'm doing a worksheet on myself as mother, but father is trigger.
Right? Or you're doing a worksheet on just dad. She's got all these uh, derogatory thoughts about dad. This whole story she's got made up. So if you were to start to chip away at that story as though you were her, you might come to another level of insight with what the still hiding part of your mind is. And then doing worksheets as though you were dad being verbally destroyed by mom.
It actually goes both ways. When dad was sober, he verbally belittled mother, so it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. So it's a family tradition.
That's why I thought Christmas would be a good time.
Yeah, yeah. Are you familiar with the Hank Williams song where the melody line of the song is, Hank, why do you drink? Hank, why do you blow smoke? Why must you live out every song that you wrote? He goes on and talks about, and in my condition, it's a family tradition.
Yeah.
Just what the family does. And changing traditions that have been acquired through generations and generations and generations. And my other thought is to put into the equation the acknowledgement of yourself, because some of that was happening in your relationship, right? And you've been committed enough to really work and shift and change that, which is probably something new in your family system.
Can you
So
say that
you
again?
might,
Can you say that again? I went blank there for a while.
okay, cool. So processing some unconsciousness, that's a good thing. So if you breathe with me on this, and just take some time, maybe in writing, to acknowledge Peter, or how he's changed the family tradition in terms of the way he deals with his wife. There's a time when you lived the family tradition with your wife, right? And then you decide to do something about it. So I'm suggesting that you really acknowledge yourself for that. Yeah, you haven't cleaned up the whole family system yet, and there's this nagging deep piece. And in the process, my suggestion would be that you'll benefit greatly by acknowledging yourself for what you have done to change the game. What are you
Well,
feeling right now?
sadness, a lot of sadness. As soon as you said the words acknowledge Peter, sadness flooded it.
Yeah. Breathing with you into acknowledging you for how you changed the tradition by which young men were raised in your family system. You changed the tradition for how young men saw their fathers treat their mothers. That's a powerful piece of work, Peter. And I acknowledge you for the time, the intelligence, the money, the energy, and the effort you've put into doing that. That's major stuff. And I'd invite you to begin to work on the part of you that wants to push that away and not let it in.
You said now when I said that I can you repeat that because I went blank? You said good unconscious because I mean that's exactly what happened competition wise. Saturday during the practice round, I was really centered and I was keeping my breath open and I mean like that competition starts and I went blank. And your response was good now when I
Yes.
said blank. So
What I'm
really,
saying is, what I'm saying is that you've opened a piece of your going blank like that. You're in the middle of a conversation where obviously you're paying attention to what's being said. But when I
Mhm.
just totally lose the train of the conversation, my best understanding of that is that it's opened a piece of the unconscious that you haven't dealt with yet. And that's why there's that blank place. Like, wait a minute, I don't remember what was said. Well, where did I go?
So really back to the archery situation because that morning was a beautiful morning. I meditated. I was in a really good place. And I translated that blankness as if I lost it. And so that was a reason for me hitting on myself again. And really, it's a vitality boost. I was in a really good place, and that was
Sort of came
definitely,
up for healing.
yeah, that was love present. And what was next came up. Interesting.
It's got to come up. I mean, to clean it out, it's got to come up. And when the bigger pieces of it come up, the tendency is to just go blotto. Like, I'm just lost, gone. Like, where did
Because
I go?
we have had this conversation before, you sharing that when you were given the instruction, look down during a session, and if you were willing to take on the ancestors, something to that extent. And I've had that sense, the experience of, okay, yes, I'm willing to take on, but I've always thought of that willing to take on the fear of my ancestors. And that again, back to the question that I started with this show here, that I mean, is it really the fear or is it the thought disorders that bring about the fear?
What you ultimately need to do is become conscious of the thought disorder that reflects this fear.
Yeah, yeah,
And
makes sense.
that's what when someone comes along and resonates it, that's when, the norm, the thing we've been trained to do is to go into denial. Oh, I'm feeling this fear. Look what you did to me. You frightened me so much. I can't even stand to be around you. And that's where I want to take a breath and touch into what has this person opened in me that I don't want to look at, that I projected, that I literally hold my breath, hide, dissociate from that energy of fear. And then here they are resonating the fear. And now I literally, what happens is that unconscious fear is the very energy that I make the picture in my brain of them from. So now I've got evidence that they're the cause of my fear. Because look at the trembling I'm doing just with having this image in my mind, just with having this circumstance, this situation come up. Look where I go. And that's where it's most important. My take would be to cancel the goal. And the goal might be a goal you have to just be approving of yourself, or having the authority approve of you, or winning, or whatever the specific goal is. And by canceling it, that projected picture collapses. And when it collapses, you get to drop into that hidden part of your own mind. And when that hidden part of your own mind comes up, the tendency is to go blotto, to just go unconscious. And that's where it's important to breathe and keep doing all of the above until you process through those layers. And who knows know, who knows what happened between sons and fathers. You live in a peaceful world, in a relatively sane world compared to what probably 10 generations ago was going on in Sweden, or 30 generations ago. You probably live in a pretty safe, peaceful, abundant world. So what's there to be processed? You go back and you hear Carl Jung, probably the greatest psychiatrist of all time, and he says, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives. How does it direct our lives? What is unconscious that I've dissociated from is what I build the picture world of, that I call perception, the world that I think is I see through my eyeballs, but really that whole world of perception is painted on the inside of my eyeballs, metaphorically at least. I'm not seeing something out there. I'm seeing the picture my mind's constructed out of what I've dissociated from. And that picture is a direct construct of what's going on in my unconscious, but I see it visually, and I've been taught to believe that it's outside of me. There's a great line in the Course in Miracles that says, you think the problem's outside of you. If it was, you'd really be in trouble. Fortunately, it's inside of you, and there is something you can do about it.
Well, that's just it. When it comes back to with the archery situation, and I was even again thinking that I'm going to quit that, I'm going to stop that, but with this conversation again, it's the perfect place because that's where
Exactly what you need.
yeah, and I thought about now the first ever competition that I did now as a grown up in 2020, I think it was 2021. And I've sat on the bed with Tanya still lying in bed, and I was getting ready to go to my first competition. And I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And Tanya said, well, you don't have to go. And the question or the answer was so clear in my system, well, do this or die. And going back to what I said, that I'm willing, okay, I'm willing to take on the fear and more so the thought disorder that bring about the fear. And so I should continue going to the competitions.
That would be
Because
my offering.
I usually start my practice with what we call blank bail practice, i.e. no target phase, and usually by just some 10 meters away. So, and it's a beautiful experience for me because I often start the practice and I can feel joy from within. And like you say, the awareness of the presence of God, I can feel how it's meandering through my system. And often there's a smile spread over my face, and it's just beautiful. So, and I'm thinking, so where is the fear now? There is no fear at all. It's a beautiful experience. And I do
Right.
that for 10, 20 minutes, and I put the target face goes up. And even with the blank bail situation, I recognize there are goals involved because otherwise I wouldn't be pulling my bow. So there are goals involved, but those goals are not recruiting any.
Hostility or fear.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's a beautiful experience. And then back to what you said, painting the picture on the inside of my eyeballs. I've been celebrating, and maybe I shouldn't, but I've been celebrating the fact that I'm not blaming the target face that I'm
Right.
putting up. I mean, I've gone beyond that, so it's not. I'm not blaming. I know that it's not because of the target face that fear is
Right.
flooding my system, and
So
yet.
you've graduated to blaming Peter.
Yeah, so I'm not in a minor league. Maybe I'm just one step above minor league. Because, but still, I'm go to the competition, and where does it come from? I'm there, and now we start, and
So The thing to really investigate my offering in that case would be to go from here I am at the bale face. I'm, I'm physiologically filled with joy, and there's a stage at which I can track that joy disappears and is replaced by fear. The question that you most need to answer is, what's the goal that changes the output of your mind from joy to fear?
And have I asked that question 1,000 times? Yes. And I keep asking it.
And when you ask it, what do you find happens with your breath?
Well, depends, because
What just
often
happened with your breath?
I ask that question, I am already breathing. So often this is during the forgiveness process, because when it's happening, I go blank, I go blotto. So I haven't been strong enough to stay fully. I leave. So I haven't been
Oh,
able
about
to ask the question when it's happening.
right. So when I asked that question about a minute ago, maybe a minute and a half now, it seemed like you went into a kind of a gasp. Can you pinpoint what was going on at that moment?
No.
I mean, I can easily imagine a number of different scenarios for you as a small boy and your father teaching you archery, taking you to the archery range. I can easily imagine genetically, there were perhaps times in your genetic history where it wasn't about an archery competition. It was about life and death. That you weren't firing, or your generations, your ancestors weren't firing at targets, and targets were firing back. Breathing with you. It's safe to go there.
The answer to the question I have found and I have experienced, and the reason I answered no is because it hasn't been solved. So I'm still there, and it seems like I've done 70, 77 times, 69 times this, and it seems like it's still there. And it seems that I should come up with another um answer, another question there. But the answer is always the same still, and it is, and that's where the sadness come now. That
You ever remember your father being in this type of expression of sadness?
is here always when he was drunk. When he hit that face when he was sad because mom had left. It was always like this or like this. Always, always, always. And the gasp, if it was there that it happened, it was the fear that source will be taken away from me, that they will leave, that love will be taken away, that they will leave.
So then the forgiveness process in that case would look like, I cancel my need for love to stay. Can you imagine your dad in that level of grief?
Say it again.
Removing his, can you imagine your father at that level of grief where he's handling his neck? Can you imagine him for a moment being in that space, in that level of grief, taking a breath, taking his hand off of his neck and going, oh my God, I am the presence of love. I am enough.
No,
Can you do that for Peter? That's the identity that needs to be recovered. You know, they talk about recovery work in the alcohol and drug arena as though what's happening is it's recovery from a disease. It's not recovery from a disease, it's recovery of this awareness of self. Being able to rise up from the mind in its grief and its loss and its pain, and being able to take that breath that delivers the truth of one's own being into one's own physiology and floods one's physiology with that presence. And whatever diseases are going on, whether it's a disease of addiction or the ABC disease or the XYZ, whatever the diagnosis is, to bring that breath and that presence of love into physiology is to throw off that disease. Literally, I don't care what the symptoms are. And what delivers that presence is that set apart breath that, you know, you haven't been around the show for a while, but I've been referring to it as the Rachma breath. The breath that is consciously, purposely taken out of love. It's not just respiration, it's not just breathing, but it's bringing in a connected breath that is connected to and delivers to physiology that presence of love. And I might remind you that right where you're at right now with your breath moving is you might bring in the memory of the completion point of your quantum still point, the last session that we did, and how when you came out of it, you were just so physiologically open, and you shared with me that you had just been sitting with God, literally. And you restore that to this state of your own physiology right now, and give that gift to yourself, to your sons, to your wife, to your father and mother, and your ancestors. Just take a moment and breathe into that moment when you came out of that session. You were like, I was just with God. Oh, that's the intervention that's ultimately needs to happen. You are that intervention. You are not that which your mind is holding apart from you. Sally just put in the chat that she's breathing strong with you, as we all are. Right with you. We're each doing this piece of work with you. We appreciate the fact that you're here to lead us in doing it. Letting that breath in fully. And bringing it in at a level of impetus that is stronger than the physiological resistance that says it can't come in here. And if the physiology is resisting that breath, no, in Aramaic, that word, the word that was used to describe that physiological resistance that does not allow the space for love to enter, to bring, to perfuse throughout the whole system. That's where you call on your will to strengthen that breath, to connect to that presence of love, and to bring it into every cell of your structure. How long have you been away?
Yeah.
It's time to return.
And I've said this
Time to
before
return.
to I said this to you before. I don't know if you recall back in 2019, I think it was, and it was also during a show, and you called me up afterwards and talked about something to the extent of the original separation.
Right.
And and I've also talked to you about this, that, well, I thought I've done that already. I thought I reconnected, so I thought I was done with that now. Excuse
Well,
me.
and the reconnection, my offering would be, tends to happen in stages, because you break one chain that has held you out of that connected space, doesn't mean that every chain is broken.
Clearly. Because and the erroneous belief that source is out there, again going back to the situation that I feel that, or the fear is that they will leave, therefore love, therefore source will leave, and I'm dead, I'm left alone, it's cold, it's dark, So the erroneous belief that source is out there.
And guess who left?
Say it again.
And guess who left?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember back in the early days at Heartland, there was a medical doctor from Indiana, and actually there were a couple, and they were both medical doctors, and they arrived at an intensive at Heartland, and they were wearing matching T-shirts, and the T-shirt was a character, a cartoon type character sitting on luggage, and the caption under the the picture, the cartoon was, "If God isn't in your life, guess who left town?"
Yeah.
And it's through the breath that you allow that gateway to open again, that veil to open. And they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain. They were talking about a purple curtain in the church. They were talking about this barrier that we build against allowing the presence of the truth of who we are, the presence of being, into our own physiology. And what my experience is that, and especially since I did a quantum still point on myself and have entered into since then, I've had a daily breath practice. And what I've found is that progressively, as I'm able to call forward the strength of breath connected to love and bring it into physiology, I can trace each day where in my physiology the healing is occurring, the transmutation of energy is occurring. There was a period where I touched into, this goes back a year or so ago, where I touched into, as a kid, going over handlebars on a bike and having a traumatic brain injury. And it took about, I don't even know, 7 or 8 months daily. I would be in a millimeter, a 2 millimeter space in my brain where I could feel the work of healing being done. And when that was done, it would move to the next millimeter and to the next and to the next. And that went on for months. And that was like a daily occurrence for, I don't even know exactly how long. I wasn't tracking it. I didn't realize what was really going on. But it had to be at least 6 or 7 months. And then one day it was complete. And since that was completed, that particular piece of work, that energy has never moved in my brain again. What I experience is it's going to different parts of my structure.
Maybe it was 9 months. Maybe you delivered it. It was a pregnancy.
It's very possible it was. It wasn't something I had conscious awareness of at the time it was happening that I thought I should be tracking it. I could probably go back and listen to radio shows because I did bring it up several times on the radio show, and I might get more of a sense of it. But it was just like, it was just, it would always be early morning. I'd be in the Rahma breath, and all of a sudden there'd come a point, and that's where I understood that the impetus of the breath has to rise to a level above the physiological resistance for that to start to move, for that to start to happen. So if, let's say, just to make it more concrete, so I would recognize if I'd breathe, I'd work to breathe, and nothing would happen, nothing would happen, nothing would happen. And so I'd come to the point of realizing, well, my resistance at this point is at a level 60. And what I realized that I had to breathe strongly enough for long enough for that Rachna breath to get to a level 70. And that's when it would kick in, and that's when the processing would start. And just as another piece of the puzzle, I also recognize that
I didn't think
excessive, well, please hold it. That excessive engagement in world goals for stuff out there, was one of the things that would inhibit stepping up to that level of Rachna breath, getting the impetus high enough to override the resistance. Go ahead, Sally.
So to call on that then?
Say it again.
That's what you're saying, that's available to call on?
Yes, exactly. And I realized, like, there would be times, I really got this when I was just at Heartland. I just spent 2 months at Heartland.
Yeah, I
And
heard.
if I got too involved, I had projects to do, and if I became too involved, that next morning when I'd try to breathe again, I couldn't get the energy going to the level of processing. It was just like, oh, so here I am just breathing away, nothing's happening. And what I realize, and then what I've tied that to, is if I have too many goals, the goals seem to create a level of resistance or increase the resistance. And so my attention, I had to draw some of that attention away from, oh, I have to get this done today, in order to get the breath to rise to the level where it would kick in and I'd be able to step into process rather than, oh, I'm just breathing for the sake of breathing, nothing's happening.
Yeah, because that's kind of the sense I had after when I came home after the quantum still point sessions, that I was breathing and breathing and breathing, but it didn't happen.
It wouldn't kick in. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
so that's the place to call on will to increase the impetus of the breath until the breath reaches a higher level than the level of physiological resistance. So if I'm at a level 60 resistance, my old stuff is there, and I'm at a level 50 breath, I can breathe for the next 10 hours. Nothing's going to happen. I need to call on a stronger, more connected level of breath, connected to love, to get it up over to where it's at a 70, and bingo, all of a sudden there it is. And I've realized that when I've become too involved in stuff out there, that's when I have difficulty getting it to that level, just by way of information. So if you're dealing with a particularly, heavy duty piece of work, it might be wise to withdraw from some of the stuff that, that we can use to create busyness, so that I'm more focused and more dedicated to this. This is the work I'm going to do now, is this breath.
I just one thing that I was going to mention, the blank braille situation. It's the sense I have is that it's where I'm the closest, where perfect being meets being perfect, and the joy is, it's like when they're overlapping, and in that situation being perfect, there are no goals outside, measurable goals outside, because with the target face up, then it's immediately measurable. With the blank veil situation, then it's the alignment of my form and having the antenna coming aligned, and so I'm getting very close to perfect being by being perfect, and that's a perfectly okay situation in that situation. But then I'm trying the
And
being
then you set a
perfect.
goal. Then you set a goal that calls carbon-based memory into play. And up comes the
Exactly.
interfering pattern that needs to be forgiven.
And now I
That's it
try to
exactly.
be, now I try to be being perfect out there in order to get the result of love staying or what have you. But it's so clear the difference
Fulfilling a
between the
goal.
two of them.
The difference
Yeah,
between fulfilling a goal and standing and being. That's the
yeah.
whole body. You just put the whole body of the work in one sentence.
Well, I felt the need to mention that, so I don't know why,
Yeah,
but
it's
I guess
right
that
on
was
track.
why.
That really is the whole essence of it. The minute I call carbon-based memory into being, it's no longer my footstool. In being,
Yeah.
carbon-based memory is my footstool. Here I am. I have no goals for you. Just shut up and do what you're told. And I fire and boom, being's there. But the minute I say, oh, there's something I need to call on you for, the past, now I get my next opportunity to heal, forgive.
So call on the will to breathe into that,
To
or
increase the impetus of the breath, the strength of the breath, the commitment
or
to the breath.
or call on carbon-based memory,
To
or
help you win.
fly to Bristol, Virginia.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it's all in the breath. It is literally when we function without breath, we function without intelligence. We function without love. We function without the capacity to heal. With breath, all of that is taken care of. It's all supplied by that level of breath. And I don't know if you've been in the show where these are things I've been discovering since I've been in the breath practice every day now for about 2 years. And, that in Aramaic there are 3 levels of breath. There's
Yeah, I heard you say
respiration.
that.
Everybody breathes. And then there's incoherent, and then there's the rocking breath.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
And if I set a goal that activates hostility or fear, then rocking is knocked out. When they said to Yeshua, what's most important? You've been telling us all this law. What's most important in it? He didn't say love your neighbor. He said Evrachna. Keep that filter. I mean, there isn't even a word for it. I don't know if there's a word for it in Sweden. I'm not aware. Swedish, I'm not aware of it. There's no word in English or Latin or Greek, any of the derivative languages between the Aramaic and here. There's no word for that Rachna. And it's the gateway that literally, and what you're describing, what you just described, it's the gateway for human life being present and alive in your human form. And the thing that kicks it out is setting a goal, thinking there's some deficiency, and setting a goal for carbon-based memory to fill it in for you.
But it's also, and again, I've asked you that before, because I have experienced the sweetness of that perfect being.
Yes.
And yet the volume of that other goal is high enough. So, I mean, I remember, so you say, I'm going to choose that instead of this, and yet it is happening.
Well, and oftentimes my offering is we don't even set the goal. The goal is in carbon-based memory. And the circumstance activates the goal, and the goal just kicks in and takes over. It's like, wait a minute, where did you come from?
Finally, that's my question. That's why I called in, and now it took us an hour to find the answer. Thank you.
Well, hey, that's fast.
Because that's exactly how it feels. I mean, as I said, I had a beautiful morning this competition Saturday, and seemingly from out of nowhere. Thank
Out of
you.
carbon-based memory.
Exactly. Don't think of the color of your car.
Yeah. And tied to survival.
Yeah, it's hard not
You
to
know,
think, but go out of your mind. But it's hard to be
yeah. It's an interesting thought to
competition
be
out
out of your mind.
yeah.
But
It's difficult to be on a competition out of your mind, but I'll try.
yeah. Well, imagine that you're standing in front of the blank bale, and there's none of that.
Yeah.
Imagine your dad sitting, rubbing his brow, rubbing his neck, and what it would look like for him to just take a breath and go, oh, the presence is here. It's mine. It's me. It's who I am. That's the realization that needs to come to each of us. And then imagine yourself being able to hand that gift to your dad.
And to my mom.
And to mom. Yeah. Yeah.
And to everybody else.
We accept. Thank you for doing this piece of work. Any other thoughts for you?
Gratitude. Thank you.
I'm with you. That smile you had about a minute ago, that was the biggest thank you I could imagine. And I'm going, if you have no other thoughts, yeah, I'm with you, Peter. Yeah, 100%. If you have no other thoughts, I'm going to just check in with Susan to see how Susan's doing. We were planning to get back into the Power Person worksheet. So I'm going to do a quick check with Susan F. and see if there's anything we can support you with, Susan. And I assume as how her microphone is staying off that we're complete. Bjorn, you have something to share?
I wanted to go back to the question of Peter's about quieting the thought or not getting into the thought that is the trigger of the fear. From the Sikh tradition, from the Kundalini Yoga tradition, they use mantras, which can be any word that make you feel connected with the source, with the oneness, that helps you remember the breath, which is a word to be focusing on, to be repeating in your mind, not only at the competitions, but in daily life, in order to not have the thoughts run away from you at any point in time. And by practicing that in daily life, from the moment when you get up in the morning, you will make a groove that's strong enough in your LP that when you then come to the competition day, you start that process the same in the morning with that same word, repeating it. Whenever you notice that the mind starts thinking about something, you start with the word again. And because of having the practice from day-to-day life, even on the days when it's important for you to stay calm and centered and not let the mind run away, you will have that word going in your mind instead of the thoughts that can bring you fear or bring you out of the alignment with the breath and out of the alignment with the source.
The challenge I would see with that, Esbjorn, would be that I would hear that as a mechanism. While it has its benefits, this still doesn't get us to the root of what needs to be cleaned up. And the objective to me ultimately is to clean out of carbon-based memory everything that could come up to create that distraction, because anything that could come up to create that distraction is literally, wherever it's stored in our cellular structure, a dis-ease energy that's going to create destruction wherever it's stored. So the ultimate objective would be to continue to do the work to access whatever's there and become so free of it that it's done, it's finished.
Yeah.
Although certainly I could see that, you know, in certain circumstances, it might be good to have a tool. It's like, well, gee, I'm on right now. I have to perform. Okay, so if I've got that tool of the mantra, that could help me to do that. But I'd also want to make sure that I'm doing the parallel piece of work of clearing out whatever that disturbing energy is, whether it's 10 generations old, whether it's from, you know, the moment of my conception or the moment of my birth or when I was 3 or, you know, whenever it was.
And that is why I'm here in your calls, Michael. So I totally
we're delighted you're here.
Yeah, because the sense I have when you was sharing that, Esbjorn, is it is a level of superimposing, and then there would be 3 options at the competition: either the carbon-based version or the superimposed mantra version, or the no, actually there would be 2. It would be those 2, because in the perfect being, I don't have that challenge.
Yeah, it's just perfect being, right? Yeah. But ultimately, the objective would be in every circumstance to be living in perfect being, not using the tool to avoid what takes us out of it.
It depends on whether you see the mantra as the way to go back from the out of alignment into the alignment, or whether you see it as an escape route.
But the objective isn't just to be in the alignment. The objective is to face and remove everything that would take us out of alignment. And literally here now we're talking about physiological alignment, because wherever an anomaly comes in to the energy system, wherever it's stored, it creates a distortion. And that distortion is a misalignment that cuts us off from the source energy that we're designed for. And so to face whatever creates the distortion, remove it, and whatever that misalignment is instantly corrected. And then there's the natural inflow of the source energy that we're designed for. That would be my best understanding at this point.
And would you have the capacity, Michael, in the position at a competition to do that clearing work there and then?
Well, it was interesting. You know, Peter came over. He mentioned doing quantum still point. He came over from Sweden. What's that, about a year ago now, Peter? And we
2
actually,
years.
is it 2 years already? Wow.
Yeah.
Time
Crazy.
flies. And we actually went up to Ohio where he was in the competition, and we were there at the competition every day. And you did boatloads of processing in that in that time frame, didn't you, Peter?
Yeah.
I was giant.
And I still wasn't able to stay in perfect being. And I can answer the question, Esbjörn, for Michael. Michael doesn't know until he is in that particular situation that it brings it up for him, right?
Exactly.
One
Yeah,
doesn't know.
and the objective isn't to hide from what's coming up. It's to be able to face it and literally apply the forgiveness tool to remove it. And whatever, whatever it is, how many generations has it been there? How many lives has it touched in my ancestry?
Right.
That I now have the opportunity to clean it up.
And going back to that time, I mean, it was such a gift to have you there as my real coach. And having experienced the differences, I was never able to reach perfect being while at the competition. So there are different levels. I was never able to reach that point during the quantum still point, yes, but not at the competition. And interestingly enough, going back to your question, Esbjörn, I have a Kriya Yoga to practice meditation. Mantra is involved in that. And there is a physical component where I kind of rest my awareness that the whole time. So that would be the equivalent to the mantra. And this very morning, last Saturday, again, I was centered. I was in a very nice groove, and I was focusing on that. And translated here will be keeping Rahman Kubaset. And somewhere in that situation, in that position, in that groove, it happened. And I just didn't see it happen. But then all of a sudden, like what you said, Michael, and thank you for that, carbon-based memory was louder, stronger. And I wasn't able to catch it, and it took over, and I went again blank and left.
Or remember from Laws of Living that once you put a goal into the mind, there are only two ways to be free of that goal in the future. One, it either is achieved or it's canceled. If it doesn't happen, it's there forever.
And I've heard you say that 1,000 times, but I've never, that happened now that I got, oh, it could be a carbon-based memory. It could be, it's not a goal that I'm aware of. It could, thank you.
So breathing with you. And that's awesome, Peter, that you've developed the ability to question to the point where we got that refinement for all of posterity. Much appreciation.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
All right. Well, please give your bride a hug for us. Tell her we said hello and we send our love. And the
Will
boys as
do.
well. All right. Lots of love. Blessings, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Peter, thank you so much. Come back and play more often. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.